Every night, in every mountain cabin in Appalachia, the same small ritual happened. The sun went down. Someone in the family, often a child, sometimes the mother, sometimes the father, went to the shelf where the light came from and started the evening's fire. It might have been a kerosene lamp with a trimmed wick, a pine knot burning in the fireplace, a tallow candle molded from last winter's rendered fat, a Betty lamp holding a small pool of grease with a wick floating in it. Whatever the family had, they made light by hand, from materials they'd processed themselves, in a specific way that kept the light going for the evening's work. Here's how mountain families lit their cabins before electricity, the four main methods, what each one actually took, and the honest safety notes for anyone wanting to try any of it today. Start with the oldest and most primitive method, pine knots and fat wood. A pine tree, when it's injured or dying, concentrates resin in specific parts of the trunk and stumps. Over years, that resin-saturated wood becomes fat wood, a dense, dark, aromatic wood that burns hot and long, with almost no need to be dry. Mountain families would find fat wood in the woods, split it into small pieces, and use it as both a fire starter and a source of light. A pine knot burning in the corner of a fireplace, or in a metal holder mounted on the wall, throws real light. Not electric lamp bright, but bright enough to eat by, work by, and see by. And it's essentially free. Any forest with pine has fat wood, and a family that gathered it in the woods had a light source that cost nothing but the effort of finding it. The downsides are real. Pine knots throw sparks. They produce heavy smoke that has to have somewhere to go. They burn fast, so you need a lot of them for a long evening. And the resin, when it burns, produces creosote that builds up in chimneys. Mountain families used pine knots when nothing better was available, and mixed them with other light sources when the family could afford it. The next step up was the tallow candle. Every mountain family that butchered animals produced fat. Some of that fat went to the kitchen as lard. Some of it, specifically the harder, whiter fat from around the kidneys, went to the candle-making pot. Tallow candle making was straightforward but slow. The fat was rendered clean, poured into candle molds, metal tubes with wicks strung through the center, and left to cool and harden. Once solid, the candles were popped out of the molds and stored in a cool place. Tallow candles were the workhorses of mountain lighting. Each candle burned for a few hours. A family would use 2 or 3 a night through the winter months, meaning a family that butchered its own animals needed to make dozens of candles a year. The light from a tallow candle is warm and yellow but modest. A single candle lights a small circle around itself. For fine work like sewing or reading, families would use multiple candles clustered together or a candle in a reflector that concentrated the light. Beeswax candles gave better light and burned cleaner, but beeswax was expensive and mostly reserved for special occasions. If this is the kind of mountain knowledge you want more of, our free Appalachian Almanac goes out every Sunday. One real method, sourced and tested, in your inbox. Links in the description. Now, the 2 other big lighting methods. The Betty lamp is the one most modern readers have never heard of. It was one of the oldest lighting technologies in Europe and America, brought to the mountains by the earliest settlers, and used well into the 19th century. A Betty lamp is a small metal vessel, sometimes iron, sometimes brass, that holds a shallow pool of animal fat, grease, or lard oil, with a wick lying in the pool and extending out over the edge. When lit, the wick draws up the melted fat and burns, producing a small, steady flame. Betty lamps were simple, durable, and used any available fat. A family that had rendered pork or beef fat for the kitchen would have plenty of fuel for the Betty lamps. They produced less light than a candle, more smoke, and a distinctive smell, but they worked, and they cost nothing beyond the lamp itself, which was often passed down through generations. The last big lighting method was kerosene, and it changed everything. Kerosene came into widespread use in the mountains in the 1860s and 1870s, after the discovery of petroleum and the development of refining processes that produced a clean, bright-burning liquid fuel. Kerosene lamps, glass-chimneyed, with adjustable wicks, produced dramatically more light than candles or Betty lamps, burned cleaner, and could run for hours on a small tank of fuel. A mountain family in 1880 with a kerosene lamp had light comparable to a low-wattage electric bulb. That was a revolution. Reading became easier. Fine work became possible after dark. Evenings extended. Kerosene lamps required maintenance. The wick had to be trimmed regularly. A jagged or overlong wick smoked and dimmed. The glass chimney had to be cleaned to keep the light bright. The tank had to be refilled from a larger kerosene container, and the whole apparatus was fragile if dropped. But once a family got used to the routine, a kerosene lamp was a huge quality of life improvement. Most mountain cabins from the 1880s onward had at least one, and better-off families had several, positioned in different rooms. The honest safety notes, because none of these methods are without risks. Open flame in a wooden cabin is a fire risk. All lighting methods before electricity were open flame sources, and mountain families lost more than a few cabins to lighting accidents. If you're using any of these methods today, do it carefully, keep them away from flammables, never leave them unattended, and have a fire extinguisher nearby. Kerosene lamps produce carbon monoxide and other combustion products. Adequate ventilation is essential. Never burn a kerosene lamp in a sealed, unventilated space. Pine knots and other resinous woods produce more soot and creosote than cleaner fuels. If you burn them regularly in a chimney, that chimney needs more frequent cleaning to prevent chimney fires. Tallow candles and Betty lamps produce smoke and smell that modern homes aren't set up to handle. In a well-ventilated cabin with a fireplace, this was managed. In a modern airtight house, it's not. And if you're using kerosene lamps, buy quality lamp oil rather than automotive or heating kerosene. The latter has additives that produce more soot and smell. For modern preparedness purposes, the four methods together give any household several options. Fatwood and pine knots for emergency fire starting and light. Tallow or beeswax candles for slow, steady, low-cost light. Betty-style oil lamps, still made and sold today, for a moderate light option. Kerosene lamps or the modern liquid paraffin equivalents for the brightest, sustained non-electric light. The deeper lesson is one this series keeps circling back to. The mountain families didn't take light for granted. Every candle was made from an animal they'd raised. Every drop of kerosene was money the family had to earn and spend. The evening's light was a resource, used deliberately, and put out when the family went to bed. We've largely lost that relationship with light. Modern homes are lit continuously, at high intensity, at low cost, and we barely think about it. That's a real gain. It's also a slight loss. The sense of light as something valuable, something worth conserving, something that shapes how you use your evening. A pine knot burning in the corner of the fireplace. A tallow candle on the table for supper. A Betty lamp on the shelf near the door. A kerosene lamp trimmed and ready for the evening's work. The Appalachian way of making light before electricity, and the small, careful methods that lit an entire century of mountain life. The history of pre-electric lighting, the chemistry of tallow candle making and kerosene refining, and safety guidance on using any of these methods today are all linked in the description. If you want all of these methods in one place, the Appalachian Way Field Guide has 47 of them with the original sources behind each one. Link below. Real methods, real sources, real history. That's the Appalachian Way. We'll see you Friday.